I've picked the perfect day to come here. It's midweek, so it's very, very quiet. This is the River Trent at North Muskham. It's one of my favourite spots on the Trent, especially on a day like today, a glorious, sunny, still spring day. The Trent's a veritable mill pond. One of the things or aspects of this walk that I like is behind me, especially this time of year, yet all year round they're really nice. These weeping willows, beautiful trees. I think this is the only such stretch of weeping willows that I know of at the side of the Trent. On this walk here you've got the river on the right hand side as you look at me, and on the left hand side there's North Muskham Lake, which is a Notts Wildlife Trust reserve. This really is a super spot to come and have a wander for an hour or so. As you walk up by and underneath these lovely weeping willows, you eventually come to this rough grassy area. It's an area which certainly hasn't been grazed for many, many years, probably decades. There's no sign of any grazing. It's well walked in certain paths by dog walkers and people just walking up the side of the Trent. It's a really good bit of habitat, and hopefully a couple of times later this year I'll come and see what we can find. This area of the Trent and most of the northern reaches of the Trent within Nottinghamshire are home to one of our most special ground beetles. It's a species I've not seen before. I've looked for it at several sites a number of times in the last year. It's Pangaeus crux major, an absolutely stunning species. All black, as are many carabrids, but this has some beautiful dark orange markings on it. It's a species I've been desperate to see for years, especially since knowing that it was indeed in Nottinghamshire. For many years it was always considered an east coastal species nearest to Nottinghamshire. But within the last 20 years or so, there have been a number of records from Lincolnshire and eventually in North Nottinghamshire, all within yards of the Trent. One day I'll come across it. Be nice if it's today though. Anyway, the walk, I'm going to continue up alongside the trees. I can see a few butterflies flying around, but the only butterfly that I've seen today has been 2 brimstones and 2 small tortoiseshells. Round here last year was brilliant for peacocks, and if you saw the last video that I did or released yesterday, I mentioned that it seems to be a bad year for peacocks. I've only seen the one that I can remember. Otherwise it seems a great year for commer and a decent year for small tortoiseshells. We'll see if we can find a peacock. Hopefully might even get a chance to film it. He says hopefully. I'm having a minute, might have two to be honest. There's a lot of bumblebees out now. Everything seems to have made an appearance this last day or two. This morning there's lots and lots of beetles in flight as well. Good numbers of butterflies. I have seen my first large white of the year, which is probably my earliest ever. So that was nice to see. I've still not seen a peacock yet though. It is a lovely day. Hope I'm not spoiling a lovely view. Bit tough if I am. The habitat you're looking at now is typical of much of the River Trent throughout Nottinghamshire. I personally find it quite hard to work as an entomologist, but it's probably because I don't spend enough time in the Trent Valley. There are some rarities to be found if you spend the time doing so and looking for them. But this type of habitat will produce a number of common species which even the general layman should have no problem in identifying. The large spider, the nursery web spider, Pisaura mirabilis, is one of the most conspicuous species that you'll find in the low rough vegetation such as the nettles and celandines that we have here. The females do produce a large nursery web, hence the name. Of beetles, there's a glorious metallic green, copper, red and blue Chrysalina fastuosa, which is found predominantly on white dead nettle. It's fairly common throughout the Trent Valley, but it's a beautiful species, absolutely stonking beetle. Maybe that I might find one in the next couple of 100 yards or so. In terms of shield bugs, a speciality of white dead nettle again is the pied shield bug. Absolutely glorious species, black and white. It is quite lively, often difficult to approach and certainly difficult to photograph sometimes. They rarely seem to sit still for any length of time. But there's always plenty to look for. Just takes a little bit of finding the more unusual stuff. Right, well, hopefully this may well just about stay in focus. This is a juvenile Larynioides sericatus. It's a spider that you'll find usually on metal fences or wooden fences, buildings, anywhere close to water. There's an odd sight. The front of Kingsmill Hospital used to be plastered in the webs of these. They grow to a decent size as well. They're every bit the equal to your garden cross spider, Arrhenius and diadematus, that you'll get in your garden. At the moment, these are only tiny little things, but already this building here is covered in their webs. I've just come across a load of sort of driftwood and debris, and there's a large sort of chunk of bark or tree trunk here, and on turning it over, there's these underneath. There's two here. I think this, I can't see with my eyes, but I think these are turtle shield bug. I think they're Podops inuncta. The quick moving click beetle there is Agriotes obscurus, which was also under here. And that's fairly common under wood that's sort of sat in fields for a number of months. You'll often get them turning up, especially this time of year. But if this is, as I suspect, Podops inuncta, now I wouldn't have expected it to have been here, to be honest. There are a few Nottinghamshire records there are, I believe, are from former pit top sites. And it's a species that I've only seen when Dillis and I did some survey work at Dartford in Kent many years ago. So it's time to pop these two little chaps up and get a proper look. I'll see if I can get some photos as well and confirm the identification. But this, if it's Podops inuncta, and if it isn't, is some record for the county. we've got the customary little egret at the side of the Trent on the opposing bank. Nothing at all unusual about that nowadays. I think it's Collingham directly across from here, and it was Collingham pits where I saw my very first little egret for Nottinghamshire. I twitched it because it was only about the 4th record ever, if I remember right. Had them from the garden down. They're even regular wintering around Market Warsop. How it's all changed. Anyway, the plan of attack now is to have a steady, wheezy wander back to the car down that way. It is an absolutely beautiful day today. Started off foggy this morning in the pre-dawn hours. Certainly at Warsop it was foggy, and it was murky when I arrived here. Blue sky now. What a beautiful, if not stunning, spring day. I'm just heading back now towards the car and towards some much needed refreshment. But it has been glorious. And I've had it all to myself. I haven't seen anybody on the walk up as far as the little hut where Larry and the already Siri Carters was. Still not seen anybody on the way back. A couple of roe deer, 2 brimstones, many small tortoiseshells, and no peacocks. And I mentioned earlier on about bumblebees, that there's lots of bumblebees out. There's one that seems to be missing, one particular species of bumblebee that seems to be missing. It's normally a species that I would have seen numerous queens of already at the moment, and that's Bombus hypnorum. It's the tree nesting bumblebee, a beautiful, probably our most beautiful species personally. It's a tricoloured species of sort of white end to the abdomen, black and beautiful chestnut coloration. It's an unmissable species, and drawn to ceanothus in my garden in another month or so. That was Bombus terrestris, which is the commonest species this year. There are loads of Queen Bombus terrestris around. But no, Bombus hypnorum is the one that will breed and nest in the eaves of your house or in bird boxes. Often called the tree nesting bumblebee, but although I've found nests in trees, it's more likely to be nesting in the eaves of your roof space. Anyway, there's loads of chiff-chaffs here today. And one Chetty's warbler up there that sang briefly and loudly for a few seconds and then shut up. So I'm going to shut up as well and head back on what has been an absolutely beautiful, very warm, sunny day. Quite a lot of new properties across the river. I know there's some flood defences there, but they're not that big flood defences. Why are we still building on floodplains? Still, I'm not a planner or an architect on £30,000 or £50,000 a year. What do I know? But if I was a mop and bucket salesman, I'd be round there. Chances are at some time in the future they'll be wanting of my services. I might not sell them one out of spite. This is a beautiful walk. It's a lovely, little spot to come if you're looking for an hour or so at the side of the Trent, peace and quiet. You'll do little better than come to North Muskham. There's a lovely pub. In fact, I've parked in the car park of the pub, and you can walk either up or down river. It's a very gentle walk, perfectly flat, lovely. These trees, they're worth coming to see just for themselves. It's lovely to walk under them. It's well maintained as well. They've been cut on this path side of it. It's opened it up a little bit more to the sun, but it's beautiful. So if you've got a free afternoon, if people still like to go out for a drive as they did in the old days on a Sunday afternoon, drive out to North Muskham and have a walk up here. You'll love it.